Did Taskmaster work? I've talked about adapting a character in the past, and I've come up with the two things a good adaptation needs to do. You need to enhance the story you're in and capture the spirit of the character. I think I need to add a caveat to that rule. I will explain. Overall, I was generally surprised with how much I enjoyed Black Widow. It was about as solid of a movie as Marvel has made. I legitimately can't think of anything that really lost me. That's not to say it's all groundbreaking or that every joke worked, but for me, as a whole, I found it to be an enjoyable cinematic adventure. However, going in, I was very skeptical of this movie, especially this guy, Taskmaster. Now, I am not comic Taskmaster's biggest fan. He's by no means my favorite Marvel villain or even my favorite Marvel mercenary, that's Bullseye, or second favorite, which is Phantom X. If we're counting Mystique, she's 3, she might even be 2, and then there's Deadpool. So yeah, Marvel Comics has its share of great mercenaries. But I get the appeal of Taskmaster. He's got a wild look and a neat power. And on top of that, he's been around since the 80s, so just by virtue of being 40 plus years old, the character's been a part of some great stories. And just conceptually, the guy who trains the henchmen, that's fun. So I was excited that Taskmaster would appear in something. Although, I was concerned if that something was a Black Widow prequel and Taskmaster was going to be some sort of twist villain. And that concern only grew when I saw this look, which I didn't hate in the movie, but think is a step down from comic Taskmaster, Spider-Man PS4 Taskmaster, and especially Avengers game Taskmaster. Like, what is this little hood thing on the back of this Taskmaster? What is it for? In the comics, it's an extension of his cape, and the shadow makes the skull look scary, but this Taskmaster doesn't wear a cape and doesn't really have the full skull face mask, so it just looks out of place. But costume issues aside, Marvel's track record with twist villains has been less than stellar, and that's really where I grew concerned for movie Taskmaster. And I know a lot of you will disagree, but hear me out. I really kind of like this version of Taskmaster. Okay, spoilers from here on out for Black Widow. I believe this Taskmaster both added something interesting to the story and maintained the spirit of the comics character. Taking Natasha's greatest moral compromise and turning it into the enemy hunting Natasha is clever. Natasha is literally spending the movie running from her past. I also totally fell for the twist, although it wasn't always at the front of my mind. I really felt like O.T. Fegbenle's character was a very poorly disguised Taskmaster. Like, sure, he's everywhere Taskmaster is, he knows Natasha. That would have been the boring answer, and I think I had resigned to that being what we'd get, so I didn't really push it. And the reveal changed the dynamic of the finale in interesting ways. We went from, this bad guy is gonna die at the end because he's bad, to, oh no, now Natasha's fighting against an enemy who she actively wants to not hurt. It's like the Winter Soldier finale. The hero and the villain having different objectives usually creates an engaging finale. Taskmaster is programmed to kill Natasha, but Natasha wants to save Taskmaster. So, I do believe this version of Taskmaster enhanced the story. It would be worse without her. But did they maintain the spirit of the character from the comics? For this one, I will say I think mostly yeah. I think the fight scenes all worked. Sure, they were largely in the trailer, but that's not the movie's fault. I kind of wish they managed to hold on to the initial bridge fight because that would have been a fun surprise. The flip, the shield, that fight was, in my opinion, I mean, this is all my opinion, welcome to Film YouTube, but the bridge fight was the most exciting Taskmaster fight scene, and I wish they were able to hide it. I also feel like Taskmaster's different fighting styles were all communicated well. Cap, Hawkeye, Widow, Panther, it got Bucky's knife flip. Felt like it all came through. I don't know who, if anything, is supposed to be the sword guy, but we're getting Black Knight and Eternals and Swordsman and Hawkeye, so maybe Taskmaster saw the dailies and was able to piece it together. But that's what Taskmaster is known for in the comics. He was born with photographic reflexes and can perfectly copy any movement or fighting style after seeing it once or twice. Taskmaster uses these skills to train henchmen and every so often take a job as a mercenary if the price is right. So, movie Taskmaster was able to copy fighting styles. Granted, it wasn't an innate ability, it was computer programming and a fancy helmet. I'm sure some comic fans will be disappointed, and I get that, but for me, what's really the difference? It isn't like comic Taskmaster spent years being trained by monks to master every fighting style. He sees them and can do them. It doesn't matter to me if it's the result of innate genetic ability or a super smart helmet. As long as we're not losing out on something else that's attached to that, like if he was a mutant, then I would want his power to be a mutant power, but only so that all of the weaknesses and prejudices and interesting things about mutant powers carry over to Taskmaster. However, even though he was born with his power, Taskmaster is decidedly not a mutant. And yeah, in the comics, Taskmaster traditionally suffers from memory loss as a result of his photographic reflexes. His brain is just full. So when he learns a new fighting style, Taskmaster needs to push an old memory out. And it's even accelerated by a serum Taskmaster takes, to the point that apparently Taskmaster has trouble remembering things minute to minute, like Memento or Dory. So people can take advantage of him by giving him assignments with little information, knowing that he can't follow up. Movie Taskmaster does not have this exact issue, but she does suffer from a lack of control and possibly has short-term memory issues as a result of her mental conditioning. So I think the essence of comic Taskmaster is present in the movie version. And that addendum, any specific issues you have with the character's adaptation can be excused a little bit if this character does not need to be that universe's definitive version of the character. For example, if you had a problem with a particularly bad adaptation, like X-Men 3's Juggernaut, or X-Men 3's Phoenix, or X-Men 3's Psylocke, yeah, that's apparently her. Those are bad adaptations. Juggernaut is not powered by a demon crystal, Phoenix is not controlled by an evil space force, Psylocke is never named in the movie. Those are unsuccessful adaptations that either hurt the story, don't capture the spirit of the original characters, or both. And that is a problem because this was Juggernaut, Kane Marco, the one and only Juggernaut in that universe. Deadpool 2 doesn't count because, as we all know, Deadpool exists in his own space. But this was the Juggernaut, the one we were going to get in these movies with these characters, and they messed him up. We weren't going to get another shot. But if you can say, yeah, this version was a bad adaptation maybe, but it can lay the groundwork for a more faithful and interesting adaptation down the line, then maybe it gets a pass. Like the Mandarin, I'm not saying it's a bad character in Iron Man 3, but as far as adaptations go, it's certainly a choice. And one of my favorite things about Trevor is if you want a Chinese Mandarin with magic rings, Trevor Slattery does not preclude that. You could still do that Mandarin, and they are in Shang-Chi. You want an evil, rich, scheming Zemo? There is still time. We can do that eventually, which means we aren't watching Zemo's entire story in Civil War, just a piece. So if the adaptation doesn't completely work, there's more room to iron out the wrinkles in the future. I think that could be said for this version of Taskmaster. When the movie ends, Antonia, Tony, like his name from the comics, that is clever. Antonia flies off with Melina, Alexei, and the rest of the freed widows. They promise to fix her, and it seems like that's the end of Antonia as Taskmaster. But that doesn't mean we'll never see that character again. The powers all come from a helmet. What's stopping someone else from stealing the helmet or making their own? Fix the software and you could turn it into a microchip that you implant directly into someone's brain. S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever agent, Tony Masters, could volunteer for the Taskmaster upgrade, and boom, comic Taskmaster is born. He likes the skull mask, so he keeps the skull as a concept, but redesigns the costume and now it looks cool. There is nothing stopping the MCU from going in this direction. And maybe they could have even set it up in Black Widow with a retooled post-credit scene, because I didn't love Val and Yelena's dynamic. I also still can't quite tell what Val's deal is. I'm not even really convinced she's Val the Countess, and I'll get more into that in this video's Nebula Plus segment, because that's something that's really been bothering me about that character. But if that is what Val is doing, put together an evil Avengers team, or at least a mean Avengers team, would have been more interested in a scene where she surveyed the crash site after Natasha left and said something like, "It's pity, all that research, all up there, and then kablooey, just like that. It's all going to waste." And then Val stumbles across a discarded Taskmaster helmet or a chip that says Project Taskmaster, and Val can pick it up and say, "But this I can work with." And that's the scene. That's a very different movie, but still, I found the Yelena reveal pretty weird. Like, Yelena knows Hawkeye didn't kill Natasha, right? Did he not tell the story of what happened on Vormir to anyone? But, okay, in conclusion, don't get me wrong. Negative criticism is fine, and if you believe this Taskmaster was a mess, if he's one of your favorite villains and you wish the version in the MCU did a better job of representing what you love about the character, then expressing that displeasure is all good. But just don't despair. Judge slowly. For me, besides the costume, I am all in on Black Widow's Taskmaster. Creative action scenes, solid thematic significance, but if you're worried, just know, this does not need to be the end for the character. This is the MCU. I think there's a chance this is only the beginning. And like I said in the video, even though we've seen a fair bit of her, I'm still not quite sure what Val's deal is. I have come up with a theory based on another comic character, which I talk about at length in an extended version of this video, which you can find on Nebula. For any of you guys who don't already know, Nebula is a creator-owned streaming service which I helped to create, and we partnered with this video sponsor, CuriosityStream, for a bundle that gets you a year of CuriosityStream's high-quality documentaries about things like science and history and spies. There are so many about spies, like this one about Stalin's James Bond. That's very relevant to this video, as well as interesting. It's about a guy I'd never heard of before, Ricard Sogra, who is considered by his peers to be one of the most accomplished spies in history. He also drank a bunch, rode a motorcycle, and had romantic rendezvous, like your traditional James Bond. He's quite a character. So if you want to get access to that bundle that includes Nebula and CuriosityStream, a yearly subscription is only $15. Not $15 a month, $15 for the year, which not only helps to support us, your favorite creators, but it also means you don't need to watch sponsor reads and you get to see Nebula Plus content. Here's a little tease. And when she first showed up, I remembered a lot of online discourse about how Madame Hydra was in the MCU, which is not a great description of what she's actually known for, but sure, that's something that the Contessa actually did. The thing is, based on comics, I don't think Val is even really that much like the Contessa. I think there is another character who she far more closely resembles. The link is in the video description. It is curiositystream.com/Nando. Go check it out. As always, huge thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel on Patreon. You guys are all amazing. Thank you so much. If you have ever considered supporting the channel, it's definitely worth doing. You could throw in any amount of money at patreon.com/NandoVMovies. We do monthly whiteboard videos. We do a book club that's for a specific tier of patrons. This month, we're doing DC meets Looney Tunes, which is a very fun little crossover that we're doing in anticipation of Space Jam. So go to patreon.com/NandoVMovies. Give it a look. It's very helpful. Also, make sure to listen to the podcast, Mostly Nitpicking, where every week me and my friends DJ and Diggins pick apart a piece of pop culture by looking exclusively at the details. We are going to do an episode about Black Widow. We just did an episode on The Tomorrow War, a movie that makes less sense as it goes along. It's a really weird movie. I can't get into the specifics here, but it's weird. Besides that, follow me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. I'm NandoVMovies on all of those platforms. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.